Hi, this is Vanessa Gorman, and today we're going to be looking at coordinating conjunctions in ancient Greek. That is the word and or but. Um, Nothing that subordinates. That's coming in quite a while. Right now, we just want to see parallel constructions. And the most common coordinating conjunctions are kai or tekai or te. Um, Te is an enclitic, does not have an accent. Kai does. And these words together or separated, usually if they're separated, just Kai, but Te can function that way. And they can come in a sequence to tell you that there are 3, 4, 5, 6 elements in a sequence in a combination. So you can get any kind of variation. So you can, it's tends to be the smaller unit. So if you join two names or if you join um, two noun phrases, they tend to use the word kai or tekai. If you want to join whole sentences or whole parallel clauses, Allah, which means and, but it also has a little bit of sense of but, um, depending on the context. So it could be actually setting up a little bit of a contrast. Doesn't need to be. There's also de, meaning and, also used more typically to join some kind of clauses or sentences. Especially you'll see mende, sometimes clumsily translated in lexica as on the one hand and on the other hand. Mende sets up some kind of contrast. So, you know, these people do this and those people do that. Often you don't translate the men at all. It just is telling your brain to expect a contrast further along. Sometimes you'll just get them with the article. And so you'll see something like this, hoi men, hoi de, which each of those will be followed by a verb, and you can translate it as some. So some people do this and other people do that because you've got that contrast set up in the mende. And of course, you can have neither nor, right? Just the word ook, not, it loses the kappa and it just becomes ude, or ute, and not even. Sometimes it's alone, just meaning not even, an emphatic not, but many times it comes in pairs, neither nor, or 3 or 4 or 5, neither this nor that nor the other thing, nor, Um, and so these are the kind of straightforward um, conjunctions to see. Um, there's also an either or, which we don't see that often, so I'll bring it up when we get to it. In trees, the solo coordinator, if there's only one, or the final coordinator, if there's a series, is labeled part of speech a conjunction, which brings it up as pink, but then its relation is coord, because it's the thing that we hang all the bits and pieces on. So you see the da is the coordinate for the main sentences, and the chi is the coordinator of the subjects. We have this sentence: the Lacedaemonians and the Athenians fought a naval battle, right? Again, immediately, and the Lacedaemonians won with Agasandridos as the commander. So the basic sentence is the Lacedaemonians and Athenians fought a naval battle and the Lacedaemonians won. We have the coordinators labeled. We have the elements being coordinated labeled with the co. So the two predicates are being coordinated by the de, so they're labeled as pred co. The subjects are coordinated by the chi, they're labeled subject co. So you can look at this tree and know how to read the sentence. Coordination can be nested. We had it on the last sentence, we have it here as well. This is a longer, more complicated sentence. Leaving aside some of the adverbial phrases, it translates roughly, they attacked into Lydia, and they burned many villages, and they took money and prisoners and loot, much other loot. So we have two different levels of coordination. we have the coordination between the predicates and the coordination between the objects, but even between the predicates, they're not quite balanced. And in English, we indicate that with a comma, so you notice we have a comma here. But in Greek, they do it a little more subtly, which is to say they stick this tet in there. So when I see that, I say, it's going to be followed by a chi, and those two elements are probably going to hang on the original tet. So to attack into Lydia, to burn villages, and to take loot. The attacking into Lydia is itself balancing the other two activities that are on the same level. The things we're doing once we're there. And that's what the little tat tells me. So they're all predcos, but these are slightly lower in level. They're not subordinated, but they are joined together more closely than they're joined to the first verb. Okay? The earlier coordinators hang on the final coordinator, so the tat and the chi go together, right? It's not chi, tat, chi in this case. It's not all three absolutely equal. The tat and the chi go together, and for the tat, you label the part of speech as an adverb, hence it is showing up as orange, and the relation is an aux y, a sentence adverb is what we call that, and that's how the convention we use for coordination. You can see the same thing a little lower when we talk about they took money and prisoners and much other loot. So we have a chi in a series. So aux y adverb here, conjunction that is labeled as a coordinator here. Coordinators have to coordinate parallel relation elements. That is, you can coordinate a noun with a prepositional phrase as long as they are both functioning the same way in the sentence. As long as they are both adverbs, they are both objects, they are both attributes, something. So we can coordinate here three predicates. That's not a problem. You can't coordinate an adverb with a predicate. That just doesn't work. We can coordinate here three objects. No problem. So, but they have to be parallel elements. Okay, so let's look at a few examples in trees. And these two trees have the exact same structure. You can see the Lacedaemonians and Athenians. You know that they're subjects because they're both nominative plural, joined with a chi. Lacedaemonians and Athenians, they made the treaty. So made is your predicate, your main verb of the sentence. Treaty is the object. The hangs on treaty as an attribute. And these two hang together as subject cos. So if you look at this sentence, you can recreate the translation. You can make the translation. Likewise here, the exact same structure, only in this case we have Thrasybulus in the nominative singular and hoplitai in the nominative plural. So Thrasybulus and the hoplites were helping the guard. Exact same structure, right? All right. What about this sentence? This goes to show you that you can conjoin other elements of the sentence. So here we have a single subject, also singular, but Pharnabazus, modified by the, was helping. Now it doesn't say who it's helping because there's no direct object in the accusative. This verb, hoithao, takes an accusative of who you help, whom you help. But it does give us these two datives. And so you say, aha, that's the wrong case for the direct object. It's the right case for means, instrument, accompaniment. So he, in this case, was going to help with his army and with his cavalry. So they're both in the dative, and they're joined very, very closely with a tech-i between them. That's a very, very tight connection. So they're labeled as adverb cos. They're not a necessary argument of the verb. You can go to help without saying with what. The necessary argument would be who you're going to help, but that has to be implied by the context of the sentence. Okay. Going back to our first sentence, we've already seen this. You can have the parallel subjects and the parallel predicates. No problem. Here's an example of hoi men, hoi da. So you'll remember if there's no express subject, hoi men is some guys, hoi dat are other guys. In this case, they're masculine, they're plurals, they're nominatives. We know they're the subject. So some men were fighting and other men were fleeing, right? The men des sets up the contrast there. And then finally, an example of the neither nor construction. You'll see when we make trees, we break the two halves of this word apart because I need the conjunction and I need the not separately. So they were fighting a sea battle by sea. A little redundant, but there you go. They were not doing that. So he was not fighting a sea battle, nor was he fighting on the land, but he was remaining in the camp. So if you look at these, this dative is place where, this dative is place where, this dative is place where, that's all fine. So you have to say not fighting the sea battle, nor fighting on land. But then you use the ta-ta as the conjunction here, right? Ta-ta. And then you have this Allah, and it drops the final short A if the next word starts with a vowel, so it just becomes an elision. And this joins and gives, in this sentence, a little sense of contrast. On the one hand, he's not fighting. On the other hand, he's staying in camp. Okay? So that should give you a rough idea. You should go, there's just not too many sentences here, but this kind of conjunction shows up all the time, and so you'll become very familiar with it very quickly.